Let's take a look at this year's reasons that Congress has ground to a halt. We had that 43-day shutdown, the longest in American history, over spending fights that nobody could close. That Homeland Security funding standoff over ICE and Border Patrol reform after the deadly shootings involving federal agents in Minnesota back in January. We've seen fights over jamming the SAVE Act into these must-pass funding bills. And now we can add one more line to that list. A congressman refusing to vote for a single procedural rule because a podcast host called him fat. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to Florida Congressman Randy Fine, who told White House officials that he would vote against every rule that hits the House floor until Don the Con fires his advisor, Alex Bruesewitz. And the offense that he was mad about? On Tucker Carlson's show, Carlson called Fine that creepy fat guy from Florida who endorsed genocide. And Bruesewitz sat right there and kept piling on. And yes, Fine was the lone Republican to vote no on a procedural rule that week in a chamber Republicans control by 6 votes. Thin margin. So he could do real damage over some hurt feelings from a podcaster.
You helped take out Dan Crenshaw. So I thank you for that. And President Trump didn't endorse Dan Crenshaw. So we've used this primary.
He didn't endorse that creepy fat guy from Florida who endorsed genocide, who laughed at a picture of a dead child in Gaza, that disgusting, I can't even remember his name, but he
was the only candidate that ran in that seat.
Why not get someone new? Like, why would you endorse that guy?
But by Friday, Randy Fine backed down after what Bruesewitz called a respectful phone call. Look, I am so glad that our republic survived the great creepy fat guy shutdown of 2026. And look, if you're going to hold Congress hostage over an insult, you should probably have a spotless record to defend, something that Randy Fine does not have. You might want to remember that earlier this year, Randy Fine posted, quote, "If they force us to choose, the choice is between dogs and Muslims, and it's not a difficult one." 40 million views. Resignation calls from Gavin Newsom. Censure calls from Hakeem Jeffries and AOC. Even Megyn Kelly, who's about as pro-Trump as cable news gets, called him a full bigot. Before that, this guy, weeks after the assassination of a Minnesota state lawmaker, responded to a Muslim colleague's criticism of Netanyahu by writing, "I'm sure it's difficult to see us welcome the killer of so many of your fellow Muslim terrorists. The only shame is that you serve in Congress." House Democratic leadership called him unhinged, racist, and Islamophobic. Of course they would, and they asked him to apologize. Instead, he refused, and he doubled down, saying that the Hamas caucus is upset, boo-hoo. Holy crap. I mean, seriously, I'm going to ask you guys, getting called fat on a podcast, is that worth shutting Congress down over? Calling a colleague a terrorist in writing got us in this climate and got him defended by people like Laura Loomer. So what should actually cost a member of Congress his committee seats? Where is the line for him? Because this isn't a one-off temper tantrum. When Omar's campaign later called for his expulsion over his remarks, Fine didn't walk anything back at all. He kept posting things like her supporters were Somali scam freeloaders and told her to go for it. Randy Fine has told us who he is, and he is far worse than a creepy fat guy. And yet he is willing to shut down the government over it. And that's why I'm going to ask that you hit that notification icon, especially for stories that'll never make it past a congressman's own press releases.